right, I still see a few people joining, but I think we should get ready. We got a couple of things to cover, and it's okay. It's just a couple introductions at first. So if you have any colleagues that are also planning on joining, just let them know that we're going to get started right now. Um, well, this is pretty exciting. It's the first uh, installment of our Behind the Hype series. This is something we're going to do this year for the rest of the year and continue into 2022. I think what we were finding is that, we did a lot of sessions where we were explaining some key concept or we were introducing a new kind of way that technology was going or some new pattern that our clients were following. And we would spend a whole portion of each of those sessions talking about, well, maybe dispelling some of the myths that were out there. There's a lot of hype around technology, especially in AI and machine learning, anything to do with advanced analytics and data science, data lakes and data warehousing, the cloud. And so, we decided to carve off that whole like myth busting portion of those sessions into its own series. And so this is the first one. I thought this would be really timely. It's part of our automation series as well, just everything around automating analytics from start to finish, that pipeline that goes and gets data and gets it into somebody's hands. So really glad that you could join us today. My name is Chris. Let me just go forward here. My name is Chris, that's me on the left. I have a pretty awesome job here at Newcomp, which is to see and hear and touch and feel and experience all of our analytics and data science practices, projects across Canada, the US, and the Caribbean, where we do business. I've also got Lee with me. Lee, I would try to introduce you, but I don't think I would do it justice. Lee's been around a long time, much older and wiser than me. So Lee, maybe just give yourself a real quick intro.
Thanks for just calling me older, first of all, Chris. But, so I am the data science and AI technical team leader for Canada and the Caribbean. So I've been at IBM for 10 years now. Spent a lot of time in the planning analytics space, and then over to the data science side, and now I lead our AI component for IBM.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, I was gonna say if it's been 10 years and we've worked together, I'm probably still older than you, so I take back everything I said. Newcomp, for those of you who don't work with us on a regular, actually I see tons of familiar names, but for those of you who don't work with us on a regular basis or aren't familiar or don't attend any of these sessions that we do, Newcomp's been around a long time, kind of seeing the evolution of data and analytics from before it was cool to now where it's kind of, core to every business function that there is. We live in a digital kind of data-driven world. And so Newcomp's in this really interesting crossroad of a bunch of technology vendors and platforms, and then all of our clients, hundreds of clients that are active on an annual basis that are trying to do exactly what you're doing today. Try to figure out what the landscape should look like, what the blueprint for analytics should look like. And so we're here to both make sense of that and then actually deliver on those projects. So, we obviously can't train and teach everybody on our team every piece of technology out there. The logos you see on the slide here are the strategic partners that we have. So we're kind of doubling down. We pick a horse or maybe two in each race, and we say those are the ones that we are going to invest in, the ones that we're seeing, especially work in the markets that we work in, heavy in the Canadian market, maybe in the small and medium business market. So those are the ones that we are doubling down on, something like Databricks, which is exploding, something like IBM, which has been a part of our DNA for many, many, many years, and we continue to invest in. Those are the companies that we're going long on. So, so really thankful to have Lee from IBM here. You're going to see IBM is a massive part of our business. You're going to see why. I think it's really important to show these tools, not just talk about them in slides, but to also show them in real life. And so this is the way that we chop up our business. You can think of these like practices. Any modern analytics person probably wouldn't need me to explain what these are to you. Everything from AI and machine learning development through to cloud migrations, data engineering, which is really important to prepare data for data science and machine learning. So this is the way that we organize our business internally at Newcomp. Tons of ways to work with us if you don't do it already. So whether that's through training or through what we're doing a lot these days, same theme, we're doing more like analytics roadmaps where companies are coming to us saying, we're not sure where to go. We know we have to modernize. We know we have to migrate to the cloud. We know some of our patterns or our blueprints for data are old and need modernizing. So help us get there. So um, there's a lot of information about this on our website. Maybe check it out if you're looking for a partner in your analytics journey. Let's talk about RPA specifically, and because I am a Formula One nerd, I had to start here, which was you are seeing, and you will see everybody. I think IBM is partnered with Red Bull. Automation Anywhere I thought was a funny one because I don't actually come across it that often. It's not even that popular, especially in the Canadian market, but here it is. They're paying probably $100 million for a sponsorship on a Formula One car. Formula One's a very intense sport. If you look at the IBM, I'm going to include the link to the IBM Red Bull story, but I think it was that one where they're saying there's about 200 sensors on a Formula One car, generating about 2 GB per lap of data. I think that ends up being around 3 TB of data over a race between the two cars. So, RPA is mainstream. It is everywhere where data is critical to operations. When we think of RPA, uh, the RPA bots, put simply, are software that can be easily programmed to do very basic tasks across applications, just like human workers do. So it's designed to reduce that burden of repetitive, simple tasks on employees, right? So just like actual robots on an assembly line. And so those three italicized points where RPA should replace a task that it requires minimal thinking, minimal programming, and you think of it like an actual robot. So something that just moves something from A to B. That's a perfect use case for RPA, and we're going to go through those in detail. I see this diagram when we talk about RPA and its relationship with analytics. Remember, I'm not just here to talk about RPA specifically as a technology today. We want to focus on how it pertains to an analytics journey. And so you will see this kind of graduation. Can't tell if my webcam is mirrored or not, but you'll see this staircase. I guess I don't really agree with this, and I've seen some critique about it as well, because I don't really think that RPA should already be classified as a type of AI. So it's more of a nested view of things, and I'm going to show you a diagram in a second. And so this is, I think, a better way to look at it, where we're talking about the hierarchy of automation. So something like machine learning. So anytime you think of data science, I just want to kind of clear the path here. It doesn't mean that your company has to do RPA first and then move to ML and AI. Many organizations have already started investing in both of those in parallel. But I think in most cases, the department's in charge of those two things, and you will see that there's a specific department that deals with RPA, and then maybe you have a data science or an innovation labs or advanced analytics team, and they kind of work separately. But the world of those two domains is very much merging, or has merged already. A lot of the RPA providers out there, like you'll see today, and Lee's going to break one of these things that I'm going to say, and this is why I think the IBM platform has a bit of an advantage, because a lot of the other solutions that are out there kind of have RPA, and then they might have a smart automation module where it's this black box of machine learning kind of embedded in the RPA process. Unfortunately, that black box means that our clients, the people who end up with these platforms, have a minimal, or allowed a minimal degree of customization, and therefore they have to rely maybe conveniently on the RPA vendor or a partner to do custom development on those black boxes. And so in the long run, what does that mean? That means that costs go up if you're trying to make any changes. It means you're losing a little bit of control over that automation. And so I would caution you, whenever the RPA and the relationship between RPA and machine learning is still nascent, I would say that just scrutinize how embedded that logic is in the RPA platform and the degree of control that you have over it. Now let's start visualizing this a little bit. So let's split AI and machine learning separate from RPA. So on the left-hand side, remember pop quiz from earlier. So what are things that RPA is very good at? Things like going after legacy system data. So going through old records, copying data between systems. So anytime a record appears in one system, copy it somewhere else or copy it into a repository. Fill in a web form. So mimic a human, maybe move a mouse and click through a form, do some typing, click submit. RPA is very good at that. You can record a human's actions and just repeat it over and over again. Anytime you see a phone number box, put in this phone number. Whereas on the other side, machine learning or AI in general learns from the decisions that we make. So it is watching or being trained by something that we are doing. It's very good at making very fast judgments on an incredible amount of data. And it is very good at interacting with humans. So in making a recommendation, for example, whereas a robot is not, right? A robot isn't doing much interacting with humans at all. So let's look at an actual flow of these two processes side by side. What do we do when we build an RPA bot? We may study a problem. So let's think of something like, I won't try and give an example now. I'll put it in context afterwards. So in RPA, we study the problem that we are trying to automate. Then we write rules. We say, whenever something happens, do this, otherwise do something else. And then we test that bot. Did we handle all of the edge cases? So this is very much like traditional programming, right? If we did, then we launch it. If not, we analyze the errors that happen and we kind of refine those rules as we go. As the environment changes, we're refining our bot and analyzing any errors that happen, rewriting those rules to adapt to the environment, okay? Machine learning, on the other hand, we are studying a problem, and then we are saying, okay, we're going to take all of the data around that problem, and we are going to feed it into a model that then is trained by all of the outcomes. So if it's a bunch of attributes of a student in a university, and we are trying to train a model to predict whether they will drop out or not, and we have a flag that says, yes, they dropped out, or no, they didn't, we are supervising a model, we are training it, we are evaluating the results of that and maybe refining it and then retraining instead of programming. And so I think it's really important to understand that that's the difference, is that we are not programming a model, we are giving it data and it is learning. And so then once we launch that model into production, obviously it's making predictions, whether they are right or wrong. We then use that again to retrain the model, right? So two very different approaches to solving a problem. And I think, Lee, this is where I'm going to hand it over to you. I think it's easy to talk about, but I think it's easier for us to finish our points if people have some visual representation of it. So I'll hand it over to you.
Let me know when you can see my screen okay?
Yeah, looks good to me.
All right. That looks good. I just made a website. Don't go shopping here, folks. It's not worth it. But anyway, Lee's Foods. So what I'm going to start with today is really looking at the integrations with AI and how we can leverage that and bring up RPA through the process as well. So if you're not familiar with Watson Assistant is an amazing AI bot that can sit on your website. So much easier for customers to go through and look for frequently asked questions, for products, for courses that you might have. How do I pay my bill? And possibly with the addition of RPA, things like even paying your bill online can all be done through things like Watson Assistant. So it has amazing integration with the existing products such as RPA, and basically just gives a window that users can then go through, and as they're accessing your website and looking for things, they can go through and add stuff to it and put all the stuff they want into their account, into their ID, whatever it might be. Now, in this case, I'm going to assume I've logged into the system, so the bot does know who I am. But we can ask fairly simplistic questions to it. Now, this is a retail website, so maybe I want to. Can you tell? Sorry, I can't speak English and type English at the same time. About your Canadian products. I like to buy my products Canadian, and I might want to find out some information on it. Now, even being, an assistant, maybe I have this in my frequently asked questions section, but I can look up videos that might be on YouTube, might be on our website, and pull those directly into my our assistant for users to access them quickly. And I'm not having to dive, the user's not having to dive through the frequently asked questions section and trying to find out the information that they might be looking for. It's just a much easier interface for people to use as they access and they're looking at things on your website. Now, I might want to leverage the bot to go through and use that RPA to change things in my user profile. Maybe my user profile, if I wanted to change things like my phone number, I would have to go to a customer service agent, and then the customer service agent would have to put it in and do all this stuff for me, because it's a manual system that they have for it. Now, because I've already logged in, it's able to access my account and understand what my current phone number is. It's going to ask me what I'm going to change it to. And I'm going to change my phone number there. And they can make that change. So once change is completed, I'll get a confirmation code, and then I'll have to confirm that that's my new phone number. That is my actual phone number. You don't have to call me, but there it is. But it's also linking it to lots of other features that we're able to pull in. So let's see if we can find not just their location, but their closest location to me. I'm going to provide my postal code. And it can go through and actually link that directly even into things like Google Maps. So I could click on this. Their closest location is located within this plaza here. Again, my actual postal code. If you want to write me a letter as well, we can do that. But yes, would you like me to text you the address? Yes. And as I've been logged in, it's actually, and it recognizes that my phone number has changed now. So we would like to send it there. Yes, great. And I'm going to get a text message from the system, because we can link it with SMS systems as well. So it can be integrated with so many aspects of your business that I'm not saying we're going to replace call center staff, but most of these items would have been features that a call center agent would have had to field and take, and we just know how much time that takes, and then you're tying up a phone line and all that sort of stuff that we have built into our customer service center. So this is really just going to alleviate the efforts that are going to have to be taken on by them, and allowing it to be done by things like robotic process automation and a chat assistant through Watson Assistant. And the last thing I'm going to do, another change that can be, I want to change my account. So perhaps I've got a prepaid, account that's in here. It's currently on my savings account. I want to change it to my credit card, and they can make that change. I just need to provide my credit card number. That is not my actual credit card number. So you can have my address, you can have my, but don't provide any. Don't try to pay anything with that. Well, you could try, but it probably won't work. And then we've got a confirmation email that'll be sent to my email system, because it's integrated with email as well. So everything can be integrated to this one assistant. That's really just, it's going to take a ton of work off the customer service staff, and any of those systems that they might need. It might be an older system. It might not have access to have APIs run into it, or it can't be changed directly from the assistant, or you want to add that extra layer to it. and there's a screen that's got to be entered into. Well, robotic process automation can do that, and then you're just providing information from Watson Assistant. So Watson Assistant really just becomes the front end for your customers. They don't need to know what's happening in the background or whether they need, what's actually making the changes. But in the background, you can have RPA actually change all those aspects for you, and pass it back to a customer service agent if they need more assistance. But at the end of the day, you're going to take that work off of customer service and allow Watson Assistant and RPA to handle those calls that would normally take up a human's time. So it's an amazing savings for not only the organization, but just for the customer service group in general. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to you, Chris, if that's all right.
There we go. Can you see it, Lee?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. Yes. And so I think that's, again, back to the theme of the series. I think when you see a demo like Lee just showed, sometimes it's a little bit smoke and mirrors where it says, oh, no problem, I'll send you a text message. And, nobody ever says, how does that actually happen in the background? And so, the point is that sometimes that's a little bit ugly behind the scenes. Like Lee said, not every system has some API that a chatbot can say, okay, go update the number in the customer database, right? Sometimes that's an old form that has to be filled in. And so that's where robotic process automation can be programmed to say, go to this form, look for the field that says phone number, and it can be very dynamic. If that form changes, RPA is smart enough to go and look for that field again, but it might go manually enter that and click submit. And so, it ends up a lot of the time in our world being a really nice bridge between, these legacy systems and then really modernizing. You can't do it all at once. And so RPA is a really nice thread between the two. So yeah, and go ahead and type questions into the Q&A. I think it's really important that we understand like real life context of that. And I guess in the spirit of that, let's talk about real life RPA and where we've collected some of the real implementations of RPA across our clients. So I had to pick a couple of domains. If you've got questions about your specific department or industry, just let us know. But in finance, maybe more than anywhere, we see this happening somewhere that's very Excel, very manually driven a lot of the time. Copying data between spreadsheets, making new versions, archiving things, running macros, especially as part of like an FP&A, like a budgeting process. Invoicing is massive. If you Google RPA for invoicing, you'll get a whole ton of case studies, where RPA is actually doing because invoices are often scanned documents. And so, it's doing a lot of the work that a human would do just to organize the PDFs and get it ready, and then maybe feed it into a machine learning algorithm to go scrape text or something like that, or generate a sentiment score, things like that. In retail, where speed is of the essence, we see a lot of this happening like in price adjustments. So if things are happening a lot, and pricing needs to be adjusted, maybe that is a form that needs to be entered. That bot can sit in the background and dynamically do pricing adjustments. Lee just showed kind of a call center support use case. We obviously see that everywhere. Orders and return processing, so anything that's kind of customer facing, much like the call center. These are very highly manual, very repetitive, low thought kind of processes. It's just, did we get the box? Were the items there? If so, go do something. And so processing orders and returns in retail, another one, if that's where you're coming from, definitely go take a look. In IT, obviously, lots of natural fits here just because IT is inherently programmatic. And so, starting up and shutting down servers and resources, or doing backups, resetting passwords. We had one client that gets about 1 million service support tickets a year. Things like, I need Word on my laptop. And so, that shouldn't have to be a human that takes that ticket, reads that they need Word on their laptop, runs an installer, remote desktops in, or whatever. You can train a bot or build a bot to go do that for you, right? Email, password resets, like I said. So I'll give you a cheat sheet for how to decide if you should automate it. And this is really, really simple. So if it is repeatable, data-driven, and straightforward, that is the perfect fit. And you'll see when one of those is missing, it's either really hard to do. So if it's a very complicated process that you're trying to automate, it's going to be very difficult to do it. If it's very straightforward and data-driven, but you only do it once a year, it's probably not worth it, right? And so this is how I want you to think of when you go to kind of prioritize and organize your automation efforts. I really want you to think, where can you kind of hit that sweet spot in the middle? Questions? Let's take a look at the Q&A. Hold on, let me go over here. So Lee, question for you. I guess I kind of alluded to it too, but what in the example that you showed, where would RPA be doing some of the work, and where would like AI be doing the work in what you showed? So something like when you updated your phone number, maybe use that as an example.
Yeah. So any of the so every bit of questioning that I asked, can you tell me about your Canadian products? Can I change my phone number? Essentially, all of those AI is working in the background, because a customer might not ask it in the way, can I change my phone number? Can I change my number? My phone number's wrong. There's lots of different ways that it can be asked. So AI is really in that case doing the natural language understanding, right? It's reaching in and understanding. Did you say it one way? Did you say it another way? Do you mean something totally different? One of the great things with Watson Assistant is I need to train it on a handful of different ways that the customer might ask something, and then it understands regardless of how the customer asks. So it is a very, uh, it's really exciting as far as customer service goes. And I've had customers just go and try it and put in a couple examples, and basically any way the customer is then going to ask, it's going to work. And that's where the AI is really coming into play. Where the RPA is coming into play is changing the phone number or changing the account in those cases, because that's not something that a chatbot is necessarily going to handle. That's got to reach back to a back end system. It's got to make the change, or schedule the change depending on how your systems run. But all of that has to be done manually through a customer service agent. So RPA is really taking the load at that point and doing the work for us that a human would have to do in regular case.
Yeah, I think that again, that reinforces the point I was trying to make. And I think for anybody that's still not clear, we're going to share a couple of articles and videos in the follow-up to this. I think what can you do after? I hate to just kind of end it and say, hey, there's our perspective. I would say, based on that little Venn diagram that we were just looking at, look for things that are really native and really natural to process automation. Things like copying and pasting data, filling in forms, creating and sending emails, performing calculations. And then after you've identified those, factor in other objectives that you might not have considered yet. So what do you actually want to achieve with RPA? Are you trying to reduce costs? Maybe you start with those ones. Are you trying to improve customer engagement, like through these call centers or orders and returns, like I was talking about? Sometimes there's value in just compressing the timeline of a specific workflow. So if it has to wait for a human to go, okay, it's in the queue, click, copy and paste, sometimes just in prioritizing time savings like that, you get tons of value. So reducing errors, maybe employees aren't satisfied because they're doing a bunch of redundant tasks. Sometimes, we're just doing this to take the burden off of our employees and make their livelihoods better. I think so. So what I really want to encourage you to do is actually get your hands on. And so we'll send a link in our follow-up to this, but we run a build your bot session where you can bring colleagues. Think of the most manual, tedious task that gets done, copy and pasting or running macros, like I was saying. and we'll actually sit there and guide you through how to build a workflow and get automation started. So this is for you or you and a couple of friends. If you when you register, you'll see it in the follow-up. You'll get access to our calendar. You can just book a time in there that works for you, and then come with your hands full of something that you're looking to automate. Easy to get in touch with us if you have any questions about this, or you have any thing once you watch the recording you think maybe I should have asked a question. Feel free to send it in to us. Lee, thank you very much. Appreciate it. I love the Watson Assistant perspective because I think it really sews together the ML AI story and the RPA story. Before we wrap, hold on. I see somebody just asked a question here too. What tools do we use for RPA? Lee, maybe, I don't know, do you want to talk about the IBM offering specifically before I wrap here, or is that something that we should send out in a follow-up?
Yeah, well, no, it's actually a fairly simplistic answer. We actually have IBM robotic process automation. So if you,
Catchy. Yeah.
yeah, like it's RPA with IBM on the front of it. But it is it's a really cool solution.
Yeah.
It's not focused so much on coding as it is process and building that process automation. So you can have less technical people work on it, which is fantastic. Even guys like myself can do that sort of thing. But it's not necessarily that full coding to be able to do it. But yeah, just Google IBM robotic process automation or IBM RPA, and there's some great videos, some lots of information on the website, and I think maybe even a trial to go
I
and
think
try
so.
it. But it's pretty slick what it can do and what it can replace. I was doing it years ago with macros in my old job before IBM, but with something like this, it's actually it stops that. We used to call it shadow IT because I used to build all this random stuff, and then if it ever went down, it was my problem, not the organization's, and there was no scrutiny around it. But this adds that enterprise level of control around automating some things that just might be simplistic that your users could do very quickly.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that, we always tried to say in these sessions is that they can feel a little, or at least historically felt a little elitist. RPA, it was a group, it was very codey, very programmatic, and so maybe a little intimidating for a non-technical user to do it. The technology is so great now. Lee's right. If you go into the IPM RPA, I just pulled it up on my other screen here. But if you look at it, it's just a workflow. It just says if something happens, go and do something else, right? It's this really friendly canvas, right, Lee?
Yes, yeah, 100%. I've used it many times. It's really cool to use, and I am not a programmer, other than Python for some data science stuff. But other than that, I can't build these sorts of systems on my own.
There you go. So back to my point, please do join our build a bot session. I think it would be really fun for you to actually get your hands on this stuff. It's fun to watch videos and things like that, but way more fun to actually put it into action. So that session's coming up. You will see that in the follow-up email after this. Please join us next time for our RPA in a day session. This is a much more in-depth session. If you really want to get into the details on robotic process automation, sign up for RPA in a day. It's July 20th at 9 a.m. and you'll see more information about that. And with that, I don't see any more questions, so I think we'll sign off. Lee, thanks again very much. We'll include your contact information in the follow-up if that's okay, if anyone has
Yep,
questions
certainly.
for you. All
Yep,
right,
sounds good.
cool.
Thanks, Chris.
All
Thanks for
right.
having me.
You're very welcome, and thanks everybody. You will see more information on our next installment of this Behind the Hype series shortly. So with that, we'll sign off. Have a great week. Thank you.